Fear has a way of showing up in all of our lives. For some, it's obvious. A racing heart before a big decision, the voice in your head telling you to back away, the paralysis that comes right before you're about to take a leap. For others, it's more subtle, procrastination disguised as preparation, hesitation masked as wisdom, or endless planning that never gets translated into action. But here's the truth: fear itself is not the problem. The problem is the meaning we attach to it. Too often we interpret fear as a signal to stop, a warning that danger is ahead, when in reality, fear is simply energy. It's a messenger. It's not a sentence to stay where you are. It's a signal that you're standing at the threshold of growth. Think about it. Every meaningful moment in your life, every breakthrough, every turning point, it had fear standing right there beside it. Before you took that first job, before you walked into that relationship, before you stood up for yourself, before you made a decision that shifted the trajectory of your life, fear was whispering, "Are you sure?" And yet, on the other side of that fear was something extraordinary. That's the paradox. Fear doesn't just show up when danger is present. It also shows up when possibility is present. The same adrenaline that tells you to run from a predator is the same adrenaline that fuels your body before you take the stage, launch the business, or take the risk that could change everything. Most people make the mistake of treating fear as a wall. They hit it and assume that's the end of the road. But fear is not a wall, it's a doorway. The challenge is that the doorway is narrow. It requires you to leave behind the baggage of doubt, the illusion of certainty, and the craving for comfort. If you can push through it, you don't just move forward, you expand. Psychologists talk about the growth zone that exists right beyond the comfort zone. And the gateway to that zone is fear. Fear marks the boundary between who you are and who you could be. But let's take it deeper. Philosophically, fear reveals what we value most. You're not afraid of speaking on stage, you're afraid of being rejected. You're not afraid of starting the business, you're afraid of failing publicly. You're not afraid of love, you're afraid of being vulnerable and hurt. At the root of fear is always a mirror showing you the things that matter to you. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't feel fear. Which means that fear is one of the most accurate compasses you'll ever have. It points directly to the areas of your life that have the potential for the most meaning and the most growth. The shift begins when you stop asking, "How do I get rid of fear?" and start asking, "What is this fear trying to tell me?" If you listen, it's telling you there's something here worth pursuing. There's something here that could stretch you, grow you, change you. Fear doesn't need to be eliminated, it needs to be interpreted. That's why the people who do extraordinary things in life aren't fearless. They're simply fluent in the language of fear. They recognize the signal without bowing to it. So when fear shows up, and it will because it's built into our biology, you have two choices. You can shrink back into the familiar, or you can lean forward into possibility. The presence of fear is not proof that you're weak. It's proof that you're alive, that you're on the edge of something that matters. The key is to stop treating fear as a stop sign and start treating it as a green light that says, "Pay attention. Something meaningful is here." Because in the end, the quality of your life will not be measured by how safe you played it, but by how often you had the courage to move through fear into action. And the next time fear whispers to you, let that whisper be the very sound that pushes you forward. Fear is not the end of the road, it's the beginning of the journey. Step through it. Comfort has a way of seducing us. It feels good, it feels familiar, it feels safe. But the truth is, comfort zones are prisons disguised as sanctuaries. They trick us into believing that by staying put, by holding on to what we know, we're avoiding risk. Yet in reality, the greatest risk we can ever take is choosing not to grow. What feels like safety in the moment eventually turns into stagnation, and stagnation is nothing more than slow death. Think about it, your body itself is designed for growth. Muscles only strengthen when they're stretched and torn. Your lungs expand through exertion, even your brain forms new pathways when it's challenged by the unfamiliar. Everything in nature testifies to this truth: life expands under pressure. So why do we resist it? Because the comfort zone whispers lies. It tells you that staying here will keep you safe. But what it doesn't tell you is that comfort costs you clarity, it costs you momentum, and it costs you the fulfillment of what you were created to do. Let's break it down psychologically. Human beings are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's survival 101. But what most people never question is whether the pleasure they're clinging to is actually serving them. That's why someone stays in a job they hate, a relationship that drains them, or a routine that numbs them. It feels less painful in the short term than facing the unknown. But the mind plays a trick here. The pain of discomfort is temporary, the pain of regret is permanent. And every time you choose comfort over courage, you're essentially trading long-term fulfillment for short-term relief. Philosophically, comfort zones represent illusion. They give us the impression of control, but life itself is unpredictable. No matter how tightly you cling to routine, uncertainty will come. The unexpected diagnosis, the job loss, the betrayal, life doesn't ask for permission before it disrupts. So when you build your life inside the walls of comfort, you're not preparing yourself for resilience, you're weakening it. True safety is not found in control, it's found in adaptability. It's not found in hiding from risk, but in cultivating the strength to face it head on. Here's what's powerful. Once you step outside your comfort zone and taste growth, you realize comfort is overrated. Think back to the moments in your life when you were proud of yourself. Chances are they didn't happen in the middle of easy routines. They happened when you risked, when you stretched, when you moved beyond what felt familiar. And isn't it interesting that once you break through, the thing you feared becomes your new normal? What once terrified you becomes the very ground you stand on with confidence. That's the cycle of expansion. Today's discomfort is tomorrow's strength. But here's the catch: you cannot outsource this. No one else can step out of your comfort zone for you. No one else can decide that growth is worth more than safety. At some point, you have to make the decision that your future is more valuable than your familiar. And that decision doesn't happen once, it happens daily. Every small choice to lean into discomfort compounds into a life that feels alive, purposeful, and unstoppable. So ask yourself, what's the comfort you're clinging to, and what is it costing you? Because make no mistake, it is costing you something. The comfort zone may protect you from failure, but it also shields you from success. It may shield you from rejection, but it also blocks connection. It may protect you from risk, but it guarantees mediocrity. At the end of the day, comfort zones are where dreams go to die. Growth requires movement, and movement demands courage. The choice is yours: remain wrapped in the illusion of safety, or step boldly into the unknown where life is truly lived. Don't let comfort rob you of your calling. Step out and watch how life expands to meet you. Failure. Just the word itself can stir up anxiety. We've been conditioned from an early age to see it as the opposite of success, as proof that we're not capable, as something to avoid at all costs. But here's the reality: failure is not the opposite of success. It's a prerequisite for it. Every person you admire, every innovator, every leader, every groundbreaker has left behind a trail of failures on the way to their achievements. The difference isn't that they didn't fail. The difference is how they related to failure when it came. Most people see failure as an identity. They say, I failed, therefore I am a failure. And once you attach your self-worth to an outcome, you're trapped. You start making decisions to protect your ego instead of expanding your life. Psychologically, that's what keeps so many people paralyzed. They're not just afraid of the event of failure, they're afraid of the meaning they'll assign to it. But failure stripped of meaning is just information. It's feedback. It's the world showing you what didn't work so you can refine your approach. Think about how children learn to walk. They fall over and over again. They stumble, they bump their heads, they cry, they get back up. Not one of us would look at a toddler and say, wow, you fell down 3 times. You must not be cut out for walking. No, we understand that falling is part of the process. But somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we start shaming ourselves for the very same process that brought us every skill we now have. We expect perfection without practice, success without stumbling. That's not just unrealistic, it's destructive. Philosophically, failure can even be seen as a gift. It exposes truth. It strips away illusions and shows you what's real. When you fail, you see where your strategy was weak, where your preparation was lacking, where your assumptions were misguided. And that knowledge is gold because it gives you the chance to grow wiser, sharper, stronger. Success makes you feel good, but failure makes you better. Look at history. Thomas Edison famously tested thousands of times before he created the light bulb. Each failure wasn't a dead end, it was data. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes in history, openly admitted he missed more shots than he made, and it was in missing that he built his mastery. These aren't cliches. They're reminders that failure isn't the enemy of greatness. It's the teacher of it. But here's the shift you must make. Failure is only failure if you stop. If you keep going, it becomes refinement. If you learn, it becomes wisdom. And if you use it, it becomes the foundation of success. The people who transform their lives are the ones who stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what will I learn when I do? Because failure is inevitable, but what you do with it, that's optional. The danger of avoiding failure is that you also avoid growth. When fear of failure governs your choices, you play small, you cling to certainty, you take fewer risks. And that's how potential gets buried alive. But the moment you stop running from failure and instead lean into it as feedback, you unlock a freedom most people never taste. The freedom to act boldly, to try new things, to stretch yourself without the weight of shame. So the next time you stumble, don't let the fall define you. Let it refine you. Don't let the setback stop you. Let it set you up for a stronger comeback. Because the truth is, the road to success is paved with lessons written in the language of failure. Failure is not your enemy, it's your mentor. Listen to it, learn from it, and let it lead you forward. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what's going to govern my life? Fear or purpose? We've talked about recognizing fear as a signal, stepping beyond the trap of comfort, and reframing failure as a teacher. But all of those shifts point toward one final truth: action without alignment is just movement, but action anchored in purpose is transformation. Purpose is the force that makes the discomfort worthwhile, that turns failure into fuel, and that gives fear a different meaning altogether. Without purpose, every challenge feels heavy. With purpose, even the heaviest burdens feel like part of the mission. Purpose is more than a goal. Goals are finite, they end once you achieve them. Purpose is infinite, it gives your life direction beyond any single accomplishment. Psychologically, purpose provides resilience. When you're clear on your why, you can endure almost any how. The discomfort of growth doesn't break you because you're not doing it for ego or applause. You're doing it because it matters. When you're connected to purpose, You stop chasing validation and start living from conviction. That shift changes everything. Philosophically, purpose is the antidote to paralysis. Fear wants to shrink your world. It whispers, stay small, stay safe, don't risk, don't try. Purpose does the opposite. It expands your world by demanding more of you. It asks you to rise, to stretch, to give, to create. It tells you that life isn't just about what you can get, but about what you can give. And that realization is what breaks the cycle of self-preservation that keeps so many people stuck. Think about the times in your life when you felt truly alive. Chances are, they weren't the moments when everything was easy. They were the moments when you were connected to something bigger than yourself. Maybe it was stepping up to protect someone you love. Maybe it was creating something that impacted others. Maybe it was taking a risk not because it was comfortable, but because something inside you said, this is who I am. That's purpose. And when you live from that space, fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. Here's the danger. Too many people never discover their purpose because they're waiting for it to be handed to them like a roadmap. But purpose is not found. It's created. It's forged through choices, through action, through testing and trying. You don't sit around and wait for lightning to strike. You move, you explore, you fail, you learn. And out of that process, clarity emerges. That's why fear, discomfort, and failure are not detours. They're actually the very conditions under which purpose reveals itself. And once you have even a glimpse of that deeper why, life changes. Suddenly, rejection isn't the end of the world because your worth isn't tied to other people's approval. Suddenly, failure doesn't stop you because the mission is bigger than the mistake. Suddenly, comfort loses its grip because purpose pulls you into the unknown with more force than fear can push you back. Purpose doesn't remove the obstacles, but it gives you the fire to move through them. So the question becomes, what are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to risk failure for? What are you willing to step out of comfort to pursue? When you answer that, you'll find the fuel that turns hesitation into momentum, fear into focus, and action into impact. Because at the end of your life, it won't be the fears you avoided or the comforts you protected that define you. It will be the purpose you pursued and the difference you made.